Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenyan Revolutionary. Just with a quick live here. Quick. I know it's loud and it's noisy. It's Friday. I hope you're doing well. But here's the thing. I want to make this quick video because I think this needs to be discussed, deserves our attention as Kenyans, and it's important that we pay attention to what I'm about to talk about because a lot of people are being caught up in this euphoria of Sifuna, which is fine. We Kenyans have a habit of hopping into the newest, uh, you know, trend. If somebody's trending, everybody jumps into the bandwagon and everyone is a Sifuna, Sisi Sifuna, and all that stuff. Nothing against Sifuna personally. This is just pure politics, and we have to break down how things work. So, before I get started, ladies and gentlemen, let's get through the formalities. If this is your first time here, you know the first order of business. Like and share, comment, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. I talk about Kenyan politics in this channel and what politics as relates to Kenya. Okay? So if you like that kind of content, please, you know the first. You know what to do. Anyway, let me get to my point real quick. I hope now I'm more clearer. So here's the thing though. Now I see a lot of people are excited about Sifuna. I see a lot of people excited about Sifuna, and thank you for the like. People are excited about Sifuna, and everyone is talking about Sifuna this, Sifuna that. He's the guy to lead us to the promised land, whether it's Singapore, Canaan, name it. And to help you understand exactly why Sifuna is not going to lead us anywhere. I'm sorry to announce that. I know that might break some of you. Some of you might not be happy about that, but I'll just have to be real with you, okay? Now, I want you to consider this. I want you to understand one thing. In Kenya, we have two systems at play, okay? Two political systems of how we govern ourselves. I know. Walk with me here. The first system is the system that we all agreed upon and we signed to and we consented that this is the way we're going to govern ourselves. And that's the constitutional system that we have, a constitutional democracy. Okay? We have a constitution that we agreed upon as a people that we shall adhere to and follow, okay, religiously, in order to see our affairs are, sorted out. If there's a conflict, we have an arm of government that is the judiciary that needs to be independent and powerful enough to, adjudicate on matters that needs the law interpretation of the law as it relates to the constitution. Okay. On the administrative part of government, we have the executive branch of government, where they execute the policy of the day that should be in line with the constitution. It cannot violate the constitution, okay? Because the constitution is the holy grail. And the legislative body, which comprises of our lawmakers who make laws that we deem fit to improve on different matters. I mean, we can have laws that, maybe a chief or an MP is supposed to have seen, yes, but this has to be subservient to the Constitution. Like I said, I repeat again, the Constitution is the holy grail. Everything has to go under it. That's the first system that is on paper that we all signed for, and that is why we have all these different structures of government, all the so-called independent institutional governmental bodies like the IBC and the police and all that stuff that are supposed to, carry out their mandate. Okay? So that's the system that we're supposed to be living under, that we agreed upon and we consented to. The second system which we are actively living under is the corrupt political system that is in violation of what we consented to. I'll repeat again. The second system is the corrupt political system that is in place that we are living under. Okay, that's the most active system that we've been living under since 1963. Okay, this corrupt political system that we live under has always given power to these so-called politicians, which we refer to as leaders. Okay, the president having, you know, so unbridled power that he cannot be controlled. He can do whatever. That's why Ruto is running around the country, announcing that he's going to bring development in this section, or he's going to bring the development to this other section, and so forth, so forth. While that is a violation of the Constitution, because Constitution spells out how our resources are supposed to be, you know, shared among every community, every section of the country. Understood? But again, we are living under the corrupt political system. Okay? I see Daniel. I see my friend has posted something. Who's left for the right. So here's the thing, and I will read your comments in a few. So here's the thing. Here's the thing with Sifuna. Okay? Sifuna, granted, was his first bill as a senator, okay, but he falls under the corrupt political system. You understand? He falls under the corrupt political system. What do I mean by that? Under the corrupt political system, we have these political parties, okay? Political parties that are nothing more than organizations, companies, okay, that are formed by the elites, okay, the political elites, who also happen to be the Kenyan oligarchs, who have made their name and their wealth through corruption, living above the law. Okay? So they come up with these things we call political parties that are not ideologically driven. They're nothing but a machine, a vehicle to launder money, commit crime, and prop up individuals that will play a part into implementing their own agenda. Now, if I was to give you the hierarchical order of how the power structure is in Kenya, okay, politically speaking, okay, these guys under the second system, which we live under, this corrupt political system we have the political parties that are nothing but personal, owned by the Kenyan oligarchs, political corrupt oligarchs in Kenya. Okay, Jubilee, ODM, UDA, Ford Kenya, name it, all of them. Because if you look at it, Jubilee belongs to Uhuru, ODM belongs to the Odinga family. Okay, UDA belongs to Ruto, Wiper belongs to Kalonzo, Ford Kenya belongs to Wamalwa. See what I'm saying? So that is what I mean when I say that these political parties are nothing but companies that are meant to perpetuate the criminal system that we have in place. There are money laundering system that are pretending to be political parties, but basically they are companies that are used to launder money, prop up their servants, their minions, like the Sifunas, okay, like the Jalas, like the Bamowinos, like the Gachaguas, like the, you know, name it, Kihega, Matiangis, and so forth, so forth. So you get the gist, right? All right. So here it is. The reason why Sifuna will be a disappointment to a lot of Kenyans down the road, sooner rather than later, okay? Because I see a lot of people, you know, a lot of people saying, "Oh, then who should we vote for? There's nothing there. Sifuna is the lesser evil." You know, the same argument people are making when Ruto was running for president back in 2022. We all knew Ruto was corrupt. We all knew Ruto was a murderer. We knew that Ruto was involved in a lot of corruption, okay, land grabbing, name it. The guy was basically a criminal, but we didn't care about that because we wanted to convince ourselves, or rather, we were programmed into thinking that Ruto, since he's not the son of Jomo, he's not the son of Odinga, he's not the son of I don't know who, he's has like us. So we drank the Kool-Aid. And here we are witnessing the biggest looting spree ever in Kenyan history. And we are asking ourselves, where did we go wrong? Now, let's not pretend, because I hear some people say, oh, nyinyi mlipigia Ruto kura while we rejected him. So we have the moral authority over you guys because, you know, you guys voted for Ruto. Let me remind you guys that the so-called opposition actually ended up joining Ruto in government and helping loot the agenda of the NADCO report. Okay, the so-called agenda. NADCO, the talks that was totally rejected by majority of Kenyans. Okay, the talks and the resolutions thereof were totally rejected by majority of Kenyans. 80% of Kenyans did not want to have these NADCO discussions, nor did they give two it's about the resolution that came after that, which are the recommendations, the agenda that we're being told that are going to be reviewed tomorrow or on the 7th, or whatever the case may be, by Sifuna and all these dimwits that are going to pretend that, oh, they're holding someone accountable. It's a sham. It's all performative, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the art that Sifuna and Onyonka have mastered. They go to these TV stations and they heckle their way into these TV screens to convince you that they're passionate about the Kenyan people's struggle while they've benefited in this same corrupt system. So the biggest argument that I'm making is this, and I want you to follow me closely. I have explained to you that these political parties are nothing but companies formed by the corrupt political oligarchs of Kenya, the criminal oligarchs of Kenya, who have made their money by looting taxpayers' money, i.e. Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, Ruto, Gachagua. All of them are guilty of corruption, and Kalonzo Musyoka. So here it is. We have Sifuna, who we are told that ni mweupe kama pamba. He has never been involved in any kind of public scandal. And I mentioned in my previous video that this is the same play that Raila used. Raila was never named in any kind of scandal publicly, okay? Well, as far as him being involved in swindling people or anaiba pesa or whatever the case is. But Raila always played smart because Raila never, technically, he never really, never was head of a ministerial position. Yes, I remember he was a prime minister, but he really never had any power. Yes, he was the minister of roads, never really had power. Yes, he had the minister of, I think, energy, whatever the case is. You understand what I'm saying? So Raila always played it in a very smart way. Okay? He never was caught um, in any kind of scandal. Why? Because he always made sure that his dealings were done outside the public eye. What do I mean by that? The bribes that he received were not done directly where the arm of government could uh, kind of reach out and shed light on. For example, Sifuna does not have any CS or ministerial position where we can say that when Sifuna was the Minister of Finance, 30 billion Kenyan shillings was lost. We cannot say Sifuna was the head of uh, agriculture, Minister CS of Agriculture, and there's a scandal about the fertilizers that he ordered from Singapore, whatever the case is. So in that sense, Sifuna has never been caught in any kind of corruption per se. But like Raila, I'm explaining to you this. Remember Raila, while he was not found guilty by the government or found accused of any kind of corruption publicly by the DCI or the Auditor General, we know from Sakaja telling us how he used to drop the bag to Raila 200 million a month or whatever the case was for him to get that, for Sifuna to for Sakaja to maintain his position as the Neo. Okay? So similarly, Sifuna might not be in the public, might not be ahead of a public institution where he can be scrutinized and audited and found guilty of any corrupt dealings. Okay? So that's why you see him being vocal in the parliament. But the way Sifuna is being compromised by most likely Uhuru Kenyatta and others is it might be something that is done outside the public eye, outside the government's reach. For example, if, for example, Sifuna has an account in Dubai, he can take a trip to Dubai, or maybe he has an account in Singapore or Cayman Islands. Uhuru Kenyatta might arrange a meeting and say through his emissaries and say, hey, listen, where through your emissary, wherever it is, meet me in Dubai in such casino. On the public eye, it will look like we mentioned. We might not know about it. They might go in a casino in Dubai and money transfer might take place, sort of like the way Raila Odinga was being paid. Do you remember when Raila Odinga was making a lot of trips to Dubai, him and along with us, Joho and Junet? It was said that Uhuru was dropping the bag for him in order for him to stop the mandamano so that they can have that handshake. Okay? So on the public eye, that is something that the government cannot actually look into because Raila did not hold a public office. Okay? While Uhuru has gazillions of Kenyan shillings where he can simply, through the companies that he owns outside Kenya, okay, the shell companies can make a money transfer where Kenya has no jurisdiction over. So money can simply be transferred, and Raila makes the trip to Dubai to make sure that everything was okay. And he comes back with Jeanette and tells us, oh, now we've held meetings, talks, consultative talks. I feel like the handshake should take place. So that's kind of how Sifuna is probably, I highly suspect that he is compromised, and I believe he's compromised. But let me just make a larger point that illustrates why Sifuna will break your hearts on the long term down the road. Okay? Sifuna has operated under this political party, ODM, that I have explained to you is nothing more than a personal company for the Odingas, just like TNA and Jubilee is a personal company for the Kenyattas, where uh, people like Nani Matiangi, they are put there to run for president, but really he's working on behalf of the Kenyatta family. Okay, So similarly, okay, Sifuna has worked under ODM. And like I mentioned, I cannot stress this enough. If there was a point where Sifuna was to depart from the ODM political party and stand alone as an independent and stand with the people of Kenya, it was the time when Kenyans were asking Raila Odinga and ODM not to have talks with President Ruto, who was maiming, jailing, killing the protesters who were protesting the finance bill in June 25th, 2024. It was that time when Kenyans were telling ODM and Raila Odinga, because they knew Raila Odinga is the owner of the ODM party, it's his personal business. They were telling him, hey, do not help this Ruto guy because this guy has been involved in extrajudicial killings, he's maiming us, he's doing all this stuff, he's looting their vote, and is forcing his way into passing this finance bill, taxing us to death. And you're going to help him stabilize the government that we are trying to get him out of? If there was a time that Sifuna was to show who he really is, some balls, that was the time. Sifuna was supposed to stand up with the Kenyan people and say, listen, even though I'm in the ODM party, and the ODM party has agreed to enter into a working relationship with Ruto, who has been maiming and killing our supporters, I, as Sifuna, as a matter of principle, I will stand with the people of Kenya who voted for me to be their senator. And because I have a conscience, they will not partake into these NADCO discussions, not only NADCO discussions, NADCO resolutions that they came up with, and the broad-based government that they have formed. And therefore, I, as Sifuna, I will resign not only as the Secretary General of the ODM party, but I will resign as a member of ODM and seek a political seat, whether it's the senatorial position, gubernatorial seat, or presidential seat, as an independent candidate, standing with the Gen Zs who were the representation of majority of Kenyans. That is number one. So that's when Sifuna showed his true colors. He scoffed at the idea of Gen Zs asking him, along with Raila Odinga and ODM party, from joining Ruto, who was brutalizing Kenyans, looting from Kenyans, abducting Kenyans. You understand what I'm saying? But you have to understand now why Sifuna had to stick with ODM. Why? Because ODM, being a personal company, Raila's personal toy, the Odinga's company, the Odingas being part of the criminal elites, oligarchy of Kenya, oligarchs. Sifuna feels that he owes ODM his loyalty because ODM made him who he is. So the bigger argument I'm making is this. While people are running around excited about Sifuna, that Sifuna is the solution, the face of the Gen Zs, I am saying to you Kenyans, this is what I'm telling you. Sifuna have rose into prominence through this corrupt political system. He has been the beneficiary of it. He has rose to this household name because he has been really dealing with the corrupt political elite, be it Uhuru Kenyatta, be it Wiper Party Musyoka, be it Matiang'i, be it Gachagua, be it Martha Karua, be it all this corrupt representation of this rotten system in Kenya. Sifuna has dealt with them in some capacity. And eventually, he has rose into prominence and to a position where people are talking about him being a possible presidential candidate in 2027. Now, on the surface level, you can argue, just like majority of you are arguing now, that Sifuna is young, is vibrant, the aura, people are following him, he can move the crowd, he has the Raila spirit, he has all this stuff. But you have to remember that you cannot expect Sifuna, let's just use the hypothetical here. You cannot expect Sifuna to overhaul a system that has made him who he is. I will say it one more time for the people in the back. You cannot expect Sifuna to revolutionize the system that has brought him into prominence. You understand what I'm saying? The system that has made him. Because in order to revolutionize this corrupt political system that we're living under, that means we have to go back to the system that we consented to, which is the constitutional system that we voted for, constitutional democracy that we voted for, right? And in order to adhere to the constitutional system that we agreed as a people that we shall be governed by, it will mean the people who have previously violated this constitutional system that we agreed upon have to be brought into account. What do I mean by that? For example, Article 226, subsection 5, if I'm not wrong, it says that any public official, present or past, who have misappropriated public funds is liable for the pay-up for the money. Look, in practice, the Auditor General came out and told us that 3.1 trillion cannot be accounted for. Okay? So how does revolutionizing the criminal political system that we live by looks like in practice? That 3.2 or 3 or 3 point whatever trillion that is missing, that the Auditor General told us is missing, somebody has to be held accountable for that. And the buck stops with the rule toll for the money that was lost while he was the president of Kenya. And remember, the Article 226 again of the Constitution, subsection 5, like I said, it says even the previous public holders. So that means Uhuru Kenyatta, who was the previous president, for the money, the debts that we owe, the money that cannot be accounted for, the SGR money, the Eurobond, all those scandals, he has to account for that. Which means, if, say, Sifuna becomes the president, It is the expectation of the Kenyan people for Sifuna and all the governmental body institutions that are supposed to be independent to look into where this money went. And failure to do that means the president, Ruto, has to be jailed. The present and the previous presidents and the public officials of the yesteryears have to be jailed, brought to jail if they cannot produce this money. Now, I want you to think about this. If Sifuna, who have rose into prominence through this corrupt political system, for the sake of argument, Sifuna goes on and wins the presidency. Do you honestly believe or think that Sifuna anaweza kuanza a tribunal or an commission that looks into who is responsible for the Kenyan debt, where this 3 trillion hizi maloans ambayo were taken illegally? Do you think Sifuna can actually have a commission that will look into the matter, arrest the perpetrators, and jail them? Do you only think Sifuna can jail Gachagua, Matiang'i, Musyoka, Ruto, Uhuru, and everybody else that have been stealing? No. Why? Because it is these very people that Sifuna has been rubbing shoulders with who have helped him propel him into prominence. That's why Uhuru could not jail Kebaki. That is why Ruto cannot jail Uhuru. And that is why Sifuna or Gachagua, whoever becomes the president for the opposition side, when he becomes the president, they cannot jail the previous perpetrators. No matter how egregious crimes they've committed. Why? Because Sifuna is a product of the corrupt political system. Now, do you see the reason why we need a total overhaul of the system, which is a revolution in Kenya? Now, do you see? That is why we need a total overhaul of the system by the majority of the Kenyan people so that we can choose leaders that have never been part of this current corrupt political system in place in Kenya. So while you dance, while you entertain yourselves and say, if sisi ndio Sifuna, sijui sisi ndio nini, Sifuna will not make any change. He will not. I can guarantee you that. That is why the only solution to the Kenya problem is a revolution. And the political oligarchs, criminal oligarchs, are very clever. That's why they've presented Sifuna. That way it distracts the people of Kenya, majority of them, the energetic young folks who are the Gen Zs, to make them believe that, oh, since you are partyless, leaderless, tribeless, we found a cure. We found a solution. We found that person that you are looking for. That way, you are no longer partyless, leaderless, and tribeless. Now you have a solution. You can see Muluka making that point when he was talking to Herman Manyora in his program. You can see them paying TikTok influencers to make that case, to lure the Gen Zs, that the Gen Zs now are rallying around Sifuna. Because like I said, what terrified them was having a leader that comes outside of the corrupt political system that is in place. Because they know if they have someone that is not part of the establishment, the political corrupt system, if they have someone from outside of that system, that person will not mind jailing Ruto, Uhuru, Matiangi, Kalonzo, Karua, and the rest, because that person does not owe any, was not made, he was not willy-nilly, he was not made, he was not propelled, he was not proposed, he was not propped up by this very corrupt system. That's why you need someone who is outside of this corrupt political system in Kenya. And the only way you can bring that person is to operate outside of this corrupt political system. And the only way to do that is a popular revolution, because if you go through the IEBC and say Mnaenda 2027, they've already have a candidate for you that is part of the system, Wakina Sifuna. And guess what? Either way, the system is rigged. The process is rigged. So after the election, there'll be skirmishes orchestrated by the government to provoke ethnic division and violence. Then they shall engineer a handshake, government of national unity. And then it will be business as usual. Wakina Sifuna, they will go back to opposition. They'll pretend that you're opposing Ruto, and Ruto will go back into being the president. That is what I'm trying to show you. That is why I'm telling you, Sifuna is compromised. He's not. That's why you see Pauline Joroge and all these dodgy characters are backing him. That's the point I'm trying to make to you today, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, and comrades. So get with the program. The sooner Kenyans realize this, the better. I will leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, like, share, comment, do all the good stuff. My name is Kenyan Revolutionary. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace and blessings. I'm out. Okay, but anyway, let me recognize some people. Musyoka, I have to recognize you. Thank you so much, and everyone else who have been part of this live, who have been commenting. Goodyear, I see you waving, and everybody else, thank you so much. Peace and blessings, and have a wonderful weekend. I'm out.